then that's when, in my mind, like, you would be ready to tell him for real. Like, you gotta run that scenario out, especially with the way that you think about things, the way that you think and you ruminate on things and worry about things. It makes sense for you to run that a few times in your mind first. Make sure that she feels safe meeting him. Make sure that he accepts her. You know that he will deep down, but like feeling it play out, visualizing it play out will make you feel safe enough to like be vulnerable. It's the same thing with losing love. It's like, it's like, I don't want to tell Paul my deepest, darkest secrets, because if I do and he rejects me, then I've lost the best thing, right? So it's like, it's that, it's gonna take time for me to feel comfortable with that version of me, with her, and then with her and him in my mind, to understand that like, I'm not gonna be rejected for this.
Yeah.
It's normal.
But no, on the subway, I remembered that I tried, but last night I saw it, and like I hadn't seen it.
Amazing.
Like I hadn't seen it.
Did your family know you had tried, or?
Yeah. And then I got yelled at.
I don't know. She's
and shamed, and it was not good.
She was really young at the time. In New York?
New York.
It's a really public place to have a repressed memory, does it?
Yeah, it was random. It was because I remember going, holy fucking shit, Olivia. I just remembered I tried to kill myself in 6th
You told me
grade.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you told me.
Yeah, and it was like I hadn't remembered.
Yeah.
But that was like a couple of months before that, like I had started to do the work of like my inner child work. And it just like
Him too.
it just came to me.
That happens. Like, part of it is like, it's why I'm trying to sleep on myself, like do these things to make a safe space, because like when you feel safe in yourself, like these things will come up out of nowhere.
All the time.
I don't. Yeah, and the more you go back, like the more details you get, and it's beautiful in a very
dark way. It's shadow work.
In a
it's
very
shining
dark
light
way.
on something that you've made ugly in your mind and seeing that it's beautiful still
Yeah.
and lovable.
I guess I always thought of shadow work as the antithesis. Like, you've got your persona, you've got these characteristics, and then you have the shadow, which is, I mean, I guess kind of the villain.
Exactly. That's how it's personified. I mean, yeah, and like also.
Then do I want someone to love that?
Yes. You have to love it.
Yeah.
Like, the reason that you question that is because you don't love it.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
To me, I'm like, I need to change that about me.
Right. And as long
What
as
are you
you want
changing about you?
I guess.
The version of you that didn't speak up, the version of you that didn't cry out, the version of you that didn't say what you needed to say.
Yes.
Or the version of you that was never heard.
Right, like that. It's,
That didn't have a voice.
Right, because it's like when you think about it, it's like we spend so much time in hindsight. What I should have done. And so when we have a should, there's an expectation. There's a negative feeling attached to what I should have done and what I didn't do. And in that is like a version of ourselves that we're ultimately disappointed in. Or like ashamed of.
Well, because I also think from that has also, like, let's talk about, you know, the anger.
And then it's played out in your relationships.
Yeah.
So it's the part of you that has caused you, in your mind, because of who you were then, it's trickled into everything that's gone wrong in your relationships. Everything that's gone wrong with how you feel about yourself comes back to this. And so that is who we repress and deny and reject and say that's not who I am anymore. Because that's the part of ourselves that we want to change. Because if we could have changed that part of ourselves, it would have changed who we would have been in our relationships and who we would have been in our life and who we should have been. And that's the part that we view as unlovable because it's caused all of this pain. And that's the part that you want to change in everybody else when you see it in them. It's the part that you see it and you hate them for it because it reminds you of the part that you have in yourself that you deny, that you don't want to be. It's when you embrace that part of you and love it and can sit with her and say, I am with you, not alone, I love you. Once you love that part and you see that like all you've been doing your whole life is repeating that pattern of pain, because you'll continue to repeat these patterns until you learn from them. The ultimate lesson to learn is to accept self completely as it is. You're not born hating a part of yourself. You're taught to. And so that part of yourself that you've hated, whenever it was, you might have been 6, you might have been 11, but like there's this like the first time it's ever taught to your body to be ashamed of yourself, that's where the snap happens. And like it's like a broken bone that doesn't heal right, that always causes you pain later because it never healed the right way. And so that break, that initial break, which is important, like, and you might be thinking like, how have I fucked with my kids? Like that initial break is important for everybody because it is the root of who they become. Like it's the underlying who you are, what made you you, all the decisions you make are rooted in that, whether it's losing love, feeling heard.
I'm very independent now.
Right. And so like so much comes from it.
Fault, almost.
Oh,
And
I mean,
so,
I'm just saying that is literally what's standing
of
in the
like
way
not
your relationship,
of
right?
like not needing someone and refusing to
Loving your independence too much.
and refusing to receive love from others, because if you receive someone else's whole love, you literally can't until you love yourself, because if somebody loves those ugly parts of you, it doesn't make sense and you're going to reject that. And you will continue to attract people that have that same flaw that you have, because somebody that doesn't or that's made peace with it, it's going to remind you that you still hate a part of yourself. So like we will attract partners that are doing the same things because fundamentally like there's a disconnect in loving self. Like you find these rare people, you find Merlins, Andrews, Paul, like you find these people, but like if you don't believe that you deserve it, it's always gonna feel like, am I being pumped? And so like when is the other shoe gonna drop?
yeah, maybe.
Or like getting the rug, is that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
When are you gonna like for me, it's like I still live in a fight or flight space enough of like if Paul texted me right now and said this is over, I'd be like that makes sense. Because fundamentally there's still a piece of me that's like it doesn't make sense that you love all the parts of me, because I'm still learning to love those parts of me. And so until I love that part of myself, then I can't receive it from anybody else. And so coming back to less about other people but more about that work with self is understanding that like that ugliness that you want to change in yourself would change everything about you. It wouldn't fix anything.
I think I'm starting to get that.
You needed that. The difference is you didn't need to do it alone because of this work, because the body doesn't know that it's real time versus past. The beauty is, yeah, you needed that to be who you are. But what you don't need to do moving forward is continue repeating that cycle. You lived that pattern. But every time you've been triggered since then, your body has been put back in that feeling. Because you haven't broken out of that pattern. So it's like you've played these patterns out in other situations, scenarios with other people over and over again because you haven't learned yet that you're not alone. That part of you isn't ugly, that part of you isn't flawed, that part of you doesn't need to be changed. As long as you believe that in your core, you'll keep repeating that pattern. And so what shadow work is being able to put your body back in that place as if it were happening real time, but with your mind, go be there with yourself. And say, you're not alone. This isn't ugly. This isn't a part that you need to hide or change. This is beautiful. You're loved. I'm with you. You're safe. When you can create a feeling of safety and rewrite the narrative, then you start to understand that you need that part of you, that part of you is also who you are, that it also makes you who you are, and that without it you wouldn't be who you are. And
Your dad's saying, preach!
I know. When you embrace that part of you, then you start to see and attract what you actually deserve. But as long as you feel like that's the part of me I want to change, then that's the part that you're always going to want to change in everybody else, and you won't be able to receive the full love that you deserve because you don't believe that you deserve it.
Yeah.
It's really beautiful work though. And it's never over.
I don't think when you were saying it last night, I don't think I could hear it. Like, it was just kind of like, no, that's not the case for this.
I
Like,
know.
that's just not this.
I know.
But today I feel like, no, that has made me, and maybe I've swung too far the other way. So maybe I'm in the by the curb on the right side or whatever. But yeah, I do feel like it's made me this strong, independent woman, and I will never be dependent on a man that I can't up and leave and stand on my own 2 feet. And
Part of my growth has been learning to depend on others.
yeah. Yeah.
I have a really hard time because I watched my mom be a single mom, and I've been punked so many times that like I've been heartbroken so many times. Like, I just know what it feels like. My dad died. Like, I've been abandoned, so to speak, so many times, and I watched my mom go through it. Like, that was a big thing for me. Like, I emasculated Zach by not letting him take care of me. And like that created resentment too.
Right.
Like, part of it is like forgiveness, which is hard for me. I do not forgive. Miris knows, like, wrong me once, goodbye forever. Like, I will never think about you ever again. You're dead to me. And it's been a huge lesson for me to just learn how to forgive people. And like, and just be okay. Like, the world does not revolve around me. It's not about me. These people are doing the best they can. And for me to actually believe that is hard. Because I'm like, okay, but how the fuck do you not think about this? Because I have a trauma response of having to overanalyze and overthink and predict other people. So I don't understand when somebody's not actually considering me. Because I had to learn to consider everyone to survive. I had to consider what was going to set anybody off at any given time. So when someone isn't thinking about how it's going to make me feel, that literally doesn't compute to me. I'm like, that's selfish, then fuck off. And so just understanding that, like, it's not always about me. Everyone's doing their own thing, and for the most part, people are doing the best they can. It still hurts me sometimes, but it's not about me.
Right.
And like, that's really hard. I do have a lot of anger and resentment still. Like, forgiveness has always been hard for me. But learning to forgive, and then also learning to trust, because I have horrible trust issues. learning to trust that like Paul isn't gonna text me tomorrow and say we're breaking up.
Yeah.
Like that's hard. That's hard to believe. That's hard to believe that like things are gonna be okay no matter what. Because things have been so not okay for so long that I create my own chaos in my life because my nervous system knows chaos better than anything else. My nervous system knows how to tread water. When life is shitty, I know what to do because most of my life was shitty. I feel good in that space. I feel like I'm decisive, I'm confident, I'm independent. I know I've been homeless. I know how to do it all on my own. I can survive without anybody else or anything. And so I find myself self-sabotaging my good life to create chaos because that feels safer than safe. That's what we were talking about this morning. Safety because it's a pattern, because chaos was my pattern. Chaos felt safe because it's predictable. My nervous system learned. Chaos happens every day, so learn how to operate under chaos. That became the predictable pattern. I could expect chaos. That became safe for my nervous system.
I feel like that's how I describe my daily life.
Right.
Chaotic.
Right. And so peace, everything going well, feels wrong. It feels unsafe. It feels like waiting for that other shoe to drop because it's a little too quiet. Things are a little too good. So I'll self-sabotage to cause some chaos because that feels safer for my body. Because I'm more comfortable operating in that than in the silence, in the stillness, with peace, with everything going well, with a healthy relationship, with a healthy financial relationship, with my body personally growing, with clients. Like even statistically, if you look at healthy relationships, when they made their first $1 billion or $1 million, they get divorced like 5 minutes later, and it comes down to a root of the deep belief that like you can't be successful and happy. And there's like a fundamental disconnect there. And so people come into a lot of money and they either lose all their money right away, or they lose their marriage, or they lose their friends because deep down, like their dad was a workaholic and broke with their family, and they have a deep-rooted belief that you can't be successful and happy. You can't be, like it goes back to your childhood always. And so for me, it's been being okay with just everything being okay. Trusting that like this is safe, nothing's gonna happen. That's really hard. Just like things are good, and that's it. Things are good.
Yeah.
But it's those patterns. It's believing that things can be just good and that nothing's gonna pop off. When you live in fight or flight and like you're used to that, that's why people live in panic mode. Because if I lived in relax mode, then I'm unsafe. You grew up in a traumatic household, you grew up with a lot of whatever, where you were constantly switching into that fight or flight, eventually you just stay there. Because then you're ready. And it's a lot harder to like keep settling yourself and being okay and then going back. You learn to just stay there. But then that's when that part of your brain turns off and all these things stop working for you. And eventually that shifts your belief. And then it just affirms, see, things are fucking crazy. So,
That shit's fucking crazy.
Yeah, I barely know what to do with anything.
So in conclusion,
Coming
this
in
shit's
rough right now.
crazy.
I relate to it so well. I'm like, yes, she's describing me, but I can barely feel what to do with it.
that's okay.
It's kind of like when you were in college and you like had a class and they like teach you all this stuff, and then afterwards you're like, how do I study this to ingrain it in my brain to be prepared for the test?
Now that I know how to do.
You've had enough practice.
But yeah, or it's
Being
like
in
you go
school.
over the syllabus and you're like, this is about to be a lot.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well just buckle up. Like that's all you really have to do is like,
Yeah.
you just have to be open to doing
Focus.
the work. You just have to be open and receptive to learning.
Mm.
Like you're not gonna, like there isn't an easy answer.
Right.
If there was a one sentence I could tell you, I'd just charge 50 grand. to
Where are the
tell- to
cliff
whisper
notes?
the one
Where are the
sentence.
cliff
Yeah, like it
notes?
doesn't work like that. It's a process. You have to go through it to understand it. And like you only just understand it more so that you can do more better. Like it's
Right.
never over. I was telling Miros like all this work has taught me is that I have so much work to do.
I know. Oh God, this is uncomfortable.
And I do. Like we all do. Like I still see so much work for myself to do. Sitting here in
It's
front of
almost
you,
like it is very overwhelming to even think about it. It's like it's so much easier to not realize any of this.
yeah, and then you die.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Like you die before you die though.
Right.
Like your soul dies first.
Right.
And your body just follows. Cause like your soul chose your body. Like your soul's, you're just here as a vessel for who you know you are deep down. Like that sureness of self, like that child spirit you know you have, like that's the essence of you.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, it's easier to stay underwater, but then your soul's like, okay, so you quit. Alright, well, I mean, then your body dies. Because you're not doing anything.
Or living or...
And your body can die, but you can still be alive. For
Exactly,
a long time.
exactly.
Like I know that's exactly what my parents are.
Your soul dies and then your body follows.
Like they're technically alive, but they're not living.
Exactly. So it's like, is it easier? The same way chaos is easier. Because it's a predictable pattern and it feels safe. Once I understand that I deserve more, I'm willing to do that hard work. It feels like it's not worth it now. Like the mountain you have to climb isn't worth it because you don't feel like you deserve what you get at the end.
I feel like if I did not have kids right now, there would be no way I would do this work.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't even be open to it.
Well, yeah, that makes sense. I would go so far as to say if you never had a daughter,
Right.
because you haven't been open to it until now.
Right.
Like, it's really if you hadn't had a daughter, which really means if what hadn't happened to you hadn't happened. That's what that means. Because the only reason it makes a difference whether it was a son or a daughter is because that happened to you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really more find the compassion here. You would have done the work because you love that little girl that you were.
Mm-hmm.
You love her enough to do this work for yourself. Deep down. But you're connecting with her through your daughter. And if you need to tell yourself vicariously now that it's for your daughter, for your kids, fine.
Whatever it takes.
I can see that it's because deep down, you love that little girl. And you owe something to her to do this work, to show her that she didn't deserve that.
Mm-hmm.
By doing this work, you teach her that's not how you let people treat you. You get better to show her this is what we deserve, this is the life we deserve, this is how it's supposed to be. And it's okay if you can't see that yet. It's okay if you do it for your kids right now. But I mean, the reality is if it was for your kids, you would have started this
7 years ago.
You're doing it for her. For the little girl inside that you know deep down, there's more than this. There's more to life than this. Your soul's here for a reason. We have an opportunity. There's something more here. And because you know deep down that like she deserved better, you're doing the work now. It doesn't matter that it's like finally, it's now. The timing is perfect too because of your mom. That was God interceding. Because if you had got to 41 without a daughter, who knows what would have happened. You might believe that that little girl never deserved anything. You might believe that forever. But you had a daughter right before you turned 41. And that daughter one day is going to look a lot like 12-year-old you. You see yourself in her. And that was like the wake-up call you needed to say, she deserved better, I deserved better. And so you do the work for her. You teach her that she deserved better, and then you model that for your kids. You can tell your stories for your kids if you want, that's fine.
So I know you haven't started your talk yet, but you started the camera like 30 minutes ago.
Oh yeah?
Don't cut that.
Okay,
If you do cut it, will you cut it and send it to me?
I will. Yeah, you maybe need that pep talk.
Yeah, I want to like maybe press repeat on that a couple times.
That's why you do the work. That's why you do the work. You do the work to go back to that person and say, like, you deserved better. Let me show you better. I've got you. I'm gonna pull you. You guys talk about how I'm pulling you guys with me. But that's what I had to do for myself first. That is the work. Meeting yourself where you are now. It's what you just told me. Right? Who cares if you are where you are and you want to go deeper? Bring us with you. And so you see all of your flaws and how far you have to go still, but you drag her with you. You show her. And so like that's the work, is like meeting yourself where you are and showing that version of yourself that you deserved better.
What are we talking about?
Overwhelmed and underappreciated.
This is what I've been looking forward to.
Well, this is really a quick one.
And he's like, this is actually what I came for.
This is love that. That's a good one. These do look like VeggieTales now that I mention it.
The eyes bug.
Yeah, she was like, this looks like the tomato. Overwhelmed and underappreciated. This is really just a where do we go from here message. So that you have some action steps going back into the world. Because the reality is, as much as I tried to make this like as close to home as possible, it's not. Like, it's different. And the real world, it's patterns. Your life is patterns. And it's really hard to break patterns. And so going back home, I'm telling you so that you can prepare versus prevent. Don't go into this as, this is not how it's going to be when I get home. Before you get home, try to identify some of these patterns so that you can prepare for them first. It's a pipe dream to think that like the 3 days we've spent here is going to radically change your life to the degree that you don't have those patterns anymore. I'd be smoking crack if I thought that despite all the breakthroughs you had, you were going to go back into the world healed and like, because like I'm not. I still get triggered. So I tell my clients prepare versus prevent. We can try to prevent something all day long, and then it happens, and then we attach shame and guilt and anger and resentment, and we're triggered and fuck all of this. Or we can get a bird's eye view on our lives, start to bring awareness to some of the patterns that play out, and prepare for them. Welcome them as an opportunity to, once we have awareness, do something about it. And so if we can bring awareness to these patterns before they happen, we can go in with a toolbox, so to speak, so that you know what to do in these situations, so that you can start to break the patterns. You don't break the patterns by just like, they don't exist anymore because I'm healed. You break the pattern by catching yourself in it and deciding to do something different this time.
I did that recently, but right before a fishing. I always make sandwiches for a fishing trip, and there were like 4 boys coming over to go fishing with Matt the next day. And in the back of my head, I'm like, oh my god, I went and got all this sandwich meat. I gotta make all these sandwiches, and it was just the to-do list. And at 11 o'clock that night, I pulled all the sandwich stuff out, and I was literally walking around like, okay, like, what kind of sandwich are we? We gotta pack these sandwiches. And I finally like looked at someone. I'm like, actually, all the shit's on the table. You guys go make your sandwiches for tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I was like, caught myself. What the fuck was I doing taking orders for people to make sandwiches? These are adults.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they should be able to make their own sandwich. Anyway, that was an interesting one for me because if I didn't catch it, I feel like they would have let me do it too.
They would have.
Right.
They would have. And so that's what it is. It's recognizing patterns. Like, I make sandwiches before every fishing trip, but like, we fight about this all the time. Or I catch myself complaining about this when really I could prevent this from happening by handling it differently.
Yeah.
So it's taking a bird's eye view. So when I looked up, there's overwhelmed and there's underappreciated. So overwhelmed, feeling overwhelmed. Spoiler alert, when you let go of expectations, you no longer feel overwhelmed. The feeling of overwhelm is a product of having an expectation of like perfection or whatever your expectation might be. Mine's literally perfection, which doesn't exist, but for whatever it might be, whatever your expectations are, that expectation, feeling the need to meet that expectation is what has you feeling overwhelmed. It means you've created all these expectations in your life. So like, thought exercise after this would be like, make a list. What are all the expectations you have in place in your life for yourself and for others? And I would take it line by line and I would decide, is this true or is this a story? And or, is this actually a realistic expectation or is this setting me up to fail? This is where self-sabotage can creep in. As a perfectionist, I have all these expectations that it's my tightrope, right? So like, I'm setting myself up for failure. I'm creating self-sabotage in my life by giving myself all these unattainable expectations. And that's what creates the feeling of overwhelm, feeling like I have to live up to these expectations and I can't. And I'm trying. So what expectations do you have for yourself and for others? And are they reasonable? Or should they just maybe fall into the goals? Or should they be communicated better as standards that you can delegate? Like, where can those expectations live in a different form? Or do you just need to get rid of them? The other thing that causes overwhelm is a lack of prioritization. Lack of prioritizing. Because, again, when you're reacting versus being proactive, you're not being intentional with your thoughts, you're not being intentional with your time, everything feels urgent. Everything feels important. And so by not prioritizing, like, what actually moves the needle forward to make me closer with the best version of me? That's a priority. Anything else really isn't. And so if it's not bringing you closer to who you want to be, it's bringing you further away, prioritize those things. When you have clear priorities, one of my favorite things ever, I think Mike Chu made it up. When the yes is clear, the no is easy. I put it in your affirmations because I say it every day no matter what. It's the truth. If you don't know what your favorite ice cream is, it's hard to make a decision.
Yeah.
If you're sure that your favorite ice cream is cookie dough, and I say, do you want some Cherry Garcia? That's an easy no. When the yes is clear, the no's are easy. And prioritization does that. you get crystal fucking clear on everything you want, everything you are, then the no's are like, it's a no-brainer. I had a really hard time like giving up partying until I got really clear on the best version of me. Once I got really clear on the best version of me, it was easy to be like, no. All that feeling of like, I need to say yes out of obligation, or I'm gonna upset someone's feelings, or I want to, but I don't. I do really enjoy that stuff. Like all of those, like, but it became very easy to just be like, nah. And also, I'm sorry it hurts your feelings, but it's not about you. It's a me thing. I'm crystal fucking clear on everything I want and what's gonna bring me closer. And if it's not that, it's an easy no. And it's not personal. It's just a no. It's not a priority.
You gave an example once during one of the Wednesday nights where you explained, no, but feel free to ask me again next time.
Yeah, I tell people that all the time. My friend Allison. Allison's in a stage of like partying a lot. And like we used to party together. Our whole motto is like palms on the dance floor. So we would literally have our asses in the air because we were blackout drunk. And we would just use the floor for stability with our literal palms. So it's our inside jokes, like palms on the dance floor. And like she invites me twice a week to something because she goes out Friday night and Saturday night. So she invites me to 2 things a week. And like we have a great friendship even with that because I don't do that anymore. And when we moved back to New York City, she lives in New York. So like we were friends in college in Denver, and I quit college and I moved back to Denver, and then I moved to New York, and then I moved away, and then I moved back to New York. So like we've had this like off and on, but like this is the first season where we've lived in the same place, and I'm saying no to a lot of things. And so it's been a shift in our friendship where at first there was a lot of fear of me saying no. Like, will she still be my friend if we don't have this connection? And yeah, you're right, I say that all the time. Not for me, but feel free to ask me about the next thing. That was my way of saying like, don't get offended when I say no. It's just not for me. I still love you, I still want to be your friend, but like, it's just a no. And like 1 out of every, literally probably 30 things she invites me to, I'll say yes to. Not out of obligation, but because I'm like,
Actually,
Yeah.
that sounds fun.
yeah, great. I could use a night out, sounds great. But I don't have that, like I used to go and drink and do drugs and pay $70 for an Uber home out of obligation. And like, and it might not be that, but where is that showing up in your life? These obligations that you've prioritized that don't exist. That's creating your overwhelm. That's causing your burnout. Because you've signed on to say yes to things that you don't give a fuck about. Which brings me to learning to say no. Learn to say no. That's the last part of overwhelm, and it goes hand in hand with priorities. Because when you have those priorities, you've still like there was an in-between time when I got clear on my yeses, but I still had a really hard time saying no. And then it felt gut-wrenching to do those things because I was so clear on my yes, and I was still saying yes to all the other things that I really didn't want to do. And that feels uncomfy. Just being so sure about what's going to move me forward and then saying yes just for the simple fact that I don't know how to say no.
I struggle with that.
Yeah.
Shocker?
Call me unsurprised.
It's funny you say that because in the highway, one of my red flags is when I'm saying yes to things I don't want to do.
That's
like
a
when I
great one.
overcommit.
That's a great one. Yeah, when my plate's too full, right?
Yeah.
It's saying yes when you should be saying no, when you know that you should be saying no, because it feels really out of alignment. And it might take a few of those. It took me a few. It took me a whole season of saying yes to shit I didn't want to do, even though I was clear. Like, there's a transition period into saying no, so don't be upset with yourself if you can't yet. But start to understand that, like, I'm saying yes because I feel like I have to, not because it's bringing me closer to who I want to be. And sitting with that is like,
You're bringing awareness to the pattern, even if you aren't breaking it right away.
correct. Because bringing awareness to the pattern, even when you're playing into it, has so much less impact on the cycle playing out again. That's the first step, is awareness.
Right.
I tell all my clients, first step is awareness. Don't be so upset with yourself for not having the hang of it yet. Just start to bring awareness to these things, because you're exactly right. It's like just being aware of it. I am doing this again. It takes the wind out of its sails. There's so much less power in that pattern playing out again, because you understand what's happening now. You're outside of the pickle jar.
Yeah, I won't never make another sandwich for someone who's not my child again, unless I want to.
There you go.
There's a really good ism that if you're not the problem, there is no solution. And it applies to this a lot. Because like, I didn't realize, and you remember this from early on, I didn't realize how many things I was saying yes to.
Yeah.
Like, I would just go with the flow because I thought that's what I was supposed
Right,
to
it's
do.
a personality and
Yeah.
it's going.
And then it's
And
like,
you have all this resentment towards all these other people. And
Yeah.
I was like, bro, just say no to them. He was like, what? I was like,
because it was like people
Just don't
from
do it
work
anymore.
that I was building rapport with in a work capacity that I would then end up in social obligations with.
Yeah.
And I was like, bro, I'm working like 65, 70 hour weeks. And I'm spending another 25, 30 hours of this social stuff on like a Tuesday night that I have no interest in.
Yeah.
But it's like, going with the flow is easy
Yeah.
until you're pulling 105, 110 hour week every week,
Right.
wondering why you're tired.
Right.
And then like the whole, that ism, right? Like, if you're not the problem, there is no solution. Until I took ownership that I was the reason why I was overcommitted, I could not change it.
yeah. Yeah.
That's true.
So you gotta learn to say no. And in a way that feels in alignment with you. Like, what's really beautiful is that saying no feels bad if you're not clear on where you're going. Because then it feels like you don't really have a good reason to say no, right? It's like, I got nothing better to do. I might as well just appease this person, even though I don't really want to. I don't really know why I don't want to, so I'll just say yes. When you have clarity on where you're going and what you want, it's a very easy no.
Yeah, maybe it's not a time thing. Maybe it's an energy thing.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's like, yeah, I've got the time to do that, but it doesn't serve my purpose.
I can say no and sit by myself at home doing nothing for the rest of the night and feel fine about it. Because the thing it's not about what I have to do instead.
Yeah.
It's about doing that thing doesn't bring me closer to who I want to be.
Right.
I don't have to say no because I have such and such thing to do. I just say, no thanks, but feel free to invite me to the next thing.
Mm-hmm.
Another you-ism is you don't have to explain your yes or your no.
You can just say no.
Or yes. If it's a yes, just same way you wouldn't explain why you're saying yes, bring that same energy into your no. Like, when you say yes to something, they're not like, oh, why are you agreeing?
Right.
Right.
So when you say no, and someone's like, oh, well, why don't you want to? Honestly, I
'Cause I
just don't
don't.
want to. Yeah.
Because I don't.
Yeah. The reason why I don't is because
I've said to people, like, Allison maybe asked me once, and I was like, I just don't feel like it. Feel free to ask me to the next thing.
Oof.
And guess what? What's meant for me won't miss me.
that's another
So if she misses it, and she's not my friend anymore because she's in a party phase, and like, maybe we come back together when she's out of it, and maybe we don't. What's really nice is like, she's my people.
Mm-hmm.
Cause she was like, you're on your growth game, girl. I'll let you know when we do the next thing.
Yeah.
She was, and I think even in that same breath, she was like, we're going out tomorrow night too, in case you want to go to that. And I was like, I'm out this weekend, but like, feel free to keep trying me.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say no to a lot of things in this season, but feel free to just keep running it by me. She invites me to everything, and we have a close enough friendship that like, she doesn't take it personally when I say no
Right.
over and over and over again. And so I'm living proof that like, the people that are for you won't care.
Mm-hmm.
They won't. They'll understand. Cool beans, gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
I struggle with that because my mom, like, I feel like, and this comes up, I think we talked about this, like I told my mom, prepping for this retreat, I'm busy as hell. I'm working all week prepping for this retreat. And then I need no triggers, no family drama. I need to just like be in my own space to make sure that I'm ready for this retreat. And my mom kept inviting me to things because I was in my hometown. So like my mom's like, do you want to go to this? Do you want to go to this? Aunt Cindy and Uncle Randy are driving down 3 hours to have breakfast with us, all of us. It's like I felt a lot of obligation to do these things. I had to tell my mom no all week.
Pretend I'm out of town.
Yeah. And I was like, I don't think you understand that I am fucking busy.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a conversation with Paul about it, just feeling like it's fucking rude.
Yeah.
Why does she keep inviting me to things? And he's like, you think her intention is to like throw you off? I was like, well, no.
Right.
He's like, would you keep inviting her just to throw it out there in case she wants to come? Yeah. He's like, okay, well then I think you're telling yourself a story that fits your narrative about how you feel about your mom.
Yeah.
This is more about your dysfunctional
So much easier to see
relationship
it in other people.
with your mom. Yeah. So it was like I was mad all week at my mom, being like, she's
Because you
throwing
felt
me
like
off.
she expected you to go.
Yeah.
And that you
And
were
then if
the
I
one
didn't go,
expectation.
she was gonna be disappointed in me. And so then I'm like, why do I have to keep telling you no and making you disappointed in me over and over again? I already said I'm busy. And he was like, she's just inviting you just in case. And she's your mom
Wow,
and
that's
she
really
wants
powerful.
you to be able to go if you can. And if not, she understands. And she wasn't mad at any of the times. But I had a lot of playing out that pattern all week of getting triggered leading up to this, being like, no, I can't do anything, and feeling like I was disappointing her all week saying no. So like, learn how to say no. And it's harder with the people that you're closer to,
Yeah.
because you have these unspoken obligations, these unspoken expectations, and we have these patterns with these people that like, it's very easy for them to play out. So it's hard to break those patterns. It's hard to say no.
Yeah, I experienced a lot of dread trying to tell you I needed some space.
Mm-hmm.
There was like days leading up to it before I talked to you. Like I had to talk to her, I had to talk it out with her first. Like I was like fucking biting my nails.
Mm-hmm. And then when we finally talked, I was like, okay.
I like take some space. And then I felt the need to justify it like 100 times too.
I was like, dude, I don't care. It's fine. You've got until August, and if you wait longer, my prices might go up, and it's fine. I don't care. But it was like learning how to do what you need to do for you. When the yes is clear, the no's are a lot easier. Which brings me to underappreciated. Sometimes when we hold on to these expectations, when we feel like we're kind of firing on all cylinders, spinning all the plates, not only do we experience that burnout feeling, but like that comes from feeling underappreciated. That comes with feeling underappreciated. Or like neglected in a way where like you're not recognized. It's recognition ultimately. And all I really have to say about feeling underappreciated is sometimes you really are underappreciated. Like that's one that like, I don't think for the most part, like I think recognition is like very obvious when someone's recognizing you. And you can feel it whether, no matter what form it comes in. Recognition, appreciation, that's felt. And so feeling underappreciated can be twofold. A big part of feeling underappreciated is having an expectation of how others should be receiving the things that you're doing. Underappreciation comes from having an expectation around how others should be receiving what you're doing. If I have this unspoken expectation that I need to be praised every time the house looks amazing, and I'm not, then I'm gonna feel underappreciated. Right? Like, that's part of it. That's half of feeling underappreciated, is the expectation that you can learn to either let go of or communicate. But the other half of feeling underappreciated is real. Like, that's that's not an expectation. It's a literal, I don't receive any sort of recognition or appreciation for the person that I am or the things that I'm doing. Ultimately it comes back to you. Why do you need it in the first place? But also, that's something that comes naturally from others, but only if you feel like you deserve it first. So what I mean by this is like, I know I'll get there. It's kind of clunky coming out, but you teach others how to treat you. You set the bar. It's like if I don't think I'm worth very much, I can be pulling and pulling and pulling and pulling for someone to treat me the way I want to be treated, but that's very different from the way that I feel I deserve to be treated. And people will treat you the way that you deserve, that you believe you deserve to be treated, not the way that you necessarily want to be treated.
The
But the way
Paul expectations example is a really good one.
The what?
Your Paul expectations example, when I set an expectation in you and then I do my part, don't thank me because I'm doing what I said I was going to do. Like, it's invalidating to him that there wasn't an expectation there. Like, that example is really good because, like, he didn't just feel that way, right? Like, there was
Right.
a time where I would have just felt that way,
Right.
where it's like, oh, they didn't expect that. Man, like, they must really not think much of me, right? Instead of sitting with that feeling, he was like, hey, listen, like, if I tell you I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. Like, you can say thank you when I tell you I'm going to do it, because it's already basically done.
Right.
Once it's actually done, like, that's it.
I don't need he's
Yeah.
like, I don't need you to appreciate the things that I said I was going to do. Appreciate me for saying that I'll do it.
And that's awesome.
Appreciate me for being like, yeah, I'll do that.
That's interesting.
Once it's done, don't thank me for that because,
Just do it.
yeah. So the expectation is like, it's been set. So the way we set expectations with others and the way we feel we deserve to be appreciated.
Alright, I have an interesting relationship with this one now that I'm reflecting because okay, so coming from Cutco, we all, I mean, everybody here is sold Cutco, so we can all talk, relate to this.
Cruel.
Yeah.
Shared trauma.
Right, well, honestly, everybody that sold Cutco for any extended period of time has got some kind of trauma.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it naturally preys on that.
Yeah.
But, that's, I was really going with that.
That's what you
But it is a giggle that we could all have because, like,
Yep.
yeah, actually, there's probably some truth in that.
Yep.
Okay, so recognition.
Mm-hmm.
Coming from, you know, me and Matt met in Cutco. Cutco, I've never believed any of it. I've never believed any of the recognition. And that even has trickled over into my marriage with Matt, too. I'm like, you're just doing that Cutco recognition thing. Because it doesn't feel real. It felt like, oh, we're just trophies that, you know, they're pointing to us for the benefit of more sales reps, like, being like that. And I feel like that's trickled into my marriage, too, because when he recognizes me in front of other people, like, he'll say it all the time, oh, it's awesome. I mean, you've heard him.
Mm-hmm.
I never receive it. I'm like, you know, because it doesn't feel genuine to me, and I'm not saying that he's not genuinely recognizing me. I'm saying I can't receive it. It doesn't feel genuine because
Right. You don't believe it.
I don't believe it.
And you don't believe that you deserve it.
Maybe.
Yeah, like
We
when you're,
accept the love we think we deserve.
when you acknowledge at Cutco, sure, like, there was a spectacle and they were drawing attention to you and they absolutely wanted other people to be like you, but you did something for that.
Yeah.
Right.
It wasn't
Right.
like they would have just passed out participation trophies if it really was just about little trophies. Jamie wouldn't have been one of them. Like, you really did earn the things that you got, whether you valued them or not. And the
It's
reason
different.
you might not have valued them because you don't think you deserved them. Or you
Yeah, I
think
never
that
kept a
that's,
single trophy from Pego.
or it was just an expectation for you to be perfect, to do what needed to be done.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of truth in that too, especially being married to an ADM.
Right, and so if your expectation for yourself, if that was just your expectation, that's coming back to the Paul thing, but in like a demented way. Like, well, I was just expecting myself to be the trophy.
Huh.
And so,
When you acknowledge me
That's
for
a new
it,
term to trophy wife, doesn't it?
when you acknowledge me for it, it makes me feel really uncomfortable because that was my expectation.
Ooh.
especially if you underperform your expectation, right? Like,
Yeah, like if your
Always.
expectation was to sell 100 grand and you sold 50 grand and you got a trophy for it, you actually don't feel like you deserve it.
Huh.
and
Because
then doing
your
that over and over
expectation
again
was
builds
more.
a pattern, right? So like each time you went to an event and they were like, "Good job, you did this well," and your expectation was that you were gonna do this well.
Right.
It's like, yeah, of course now receiving public accolade is like difficult
Right.
because you've already trained yourself that you
That it's
have
not
not
real.
hit your standard.
Yeah. Huh.
Right.
Huh.
And so you teach other people how to treat you.
But
Well,
how
on a
would
good
I
and
feel
bad.
more? How would I actually feel the appreciation he's trying to give me? Like,
Drop the expectation of what you should be.
Or what he should be too. Like if you expect him to say that stuff in front of other people for you,
no, I actually don't like it when he says it in front of other people because it feels disingenuous.
Yeah, that's a you thing.
Huh.
he's
That's-
probably trying to be genuine and show you,
Is it
hey,
coming
I'm
across
proud of
genuine?
you in front of everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's you not being
You don't
able
think
to
he's just
receive
trying
it.
to like look like a good husband in front of other people? Like, by
No,
saying,
that thought has never crossed my
That
mind.
sounds like a
pretty-
story.
that's pretty fucked up, isn't it?
That's how I feel about my mom.
Mm.
Like there's an ulterior motive.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I at the root don't feel like I deserve that.
Huh.
Or my expectation from myself was a lot higher, so when someone does praise me, I feel uncomfy about it because it's like it's not even close to the standard I hold myself to. Which is a perfectionism thing, but it's like I don't like it's like you guys telling me this weekend, like my natural space of going is to find everything that went wrong about the weekend and course correct for the next one. Like I almost canceled the retreat and refunded because I didn't talk about it leading up to the event the way that I should have. My expectation of how I prepared.
Oh, I actually loved that part. How you did no hype going into it.
Yeah, and so like
Like, I was like, it's weird that I haven't talked to Olivia and I'm about to go spend 3 days with her.
yeah.
I actually love that though.
But so my expectation of what the standard I was holding myself to of what I should have been doing had me in a space of like, don't thank me for any of this. It's not what I expected from myself. So it's like, that's a receiving. Like, I can't receive because of my expectations, my shoulds and my shouldn'ts. So that's and it feels like when it comes from other people, it feels disingenuous. Like you guys, I feel like I've been in a really good spot with myself this weekend that like I actually can receive that. And like I feel like the weekend was great and like I'm glad I didn't refund tickets. But like just as an example, because I do hold myself to all these expectations that are made up, that I made up. And it's expectations that I relive. So like when you feel those, when you do feel that appreciation and notice that like your problem that you're bringing up is that like Matt appreciates you.
Yeah, no, it's terrible.
And it feels the same as feeling underappreciated.
Right.
But that comes from yourself. Like you feel that from yourself.
My poor husband.
Well, digging into that a tiny bit, one thing I would just point out and draw attention to is like, if the way that you feel is that you don't deserve the accolade, you also probably aren't giving the accolade.
Yeah.
Oh,
Because you're holding everyone to that standard, not just yourself.
And he's even brought that to, my attention. His love language is very much words of affirmation, and I could barely bring myself to praise him.
Because you hold yourself to such a high standard, but you hold everyone else to that as well.
Huh.
And so you don't give it unless it's perfect, and it's never perfect because that doesn't exist. So dropping the expectation and learning to actually appreciate people.
Ew, this is ugly.
Well, it's like, think about how much easier a time you've had receiving positive words and feedback from the people you didn't know prior to the weekend. Like, you and me is a really good example.
Yeah.
You had no expectation of me. So anything I'm doing, you're like, fuck yeah, this is cool.
Huh.
Yeah, it's because you didn't have that expectation.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? So with Matt, you're like, hey, I chose you. You're my partner. I hold you to the standard I hold myself to. So we don't do this public fake shit. Like,
Because that's how you see it.
Yeah.
So that's how you see him doing it.
Yeah. But it's because of that underlying expectation and projection.
Yeah.
Doesn't he say it when it's just the two of you two?
Not as often. But, oh man, maybe we could just go off in left field here. I mean, he's, I don't know. Maybe I only notice it when he's doing it in public. And when I say public, I mean like we've got
At a dinner party or like
dinner party that
Game night,
I
yeah.
just did a fish fry and I fucking slayed it.
He's just
And it's good.
bragging about you.
And he'll say like, honey, you killed this. Everybody, isn't my wife amazing, guys, or whatever. And it's the isn't my wife amazing, guys, that like shuts me down. I'm like,
Well, he just looked at me. So there's like, that's trauma. That's your trauma. Of like not being able to receive that because you don't believe that. The trigger of having to be somebody for all these other people. Like, it could just be that it only triggers you when he says that in a group because it's in front of other men.
right.
And also the
Like,
whole
it could
idea
have
of
nothing
the
to
trophy.
do. Yeah, like you're the trophy. You're his prize. Like that could be how it feels when he appreciates you in front of people.
Huh.
Like, it could be a whole other thing that has nothing to do with him appreciating you and more of like the where you are and the who you're around that like makes you self-conscious of like, okay, but I don't want them to like me too much.
Same idea with the
Don't
flirting.
don't praise me so much. Like, I'm staying this way in my shell, looking this way, like to keep to myself and like receiving this praise, like, and this attention. It's less about the praise; it's more about the attention. Like when it's in a group that like you're being noticed and singled out, when you're winning trophies on stage on Cutco, and everyone's noticing you separated from everybody else, like it's highlighting you, it's drawing attention to you.
Right.
So I just think that's your trauma.
Your physical body has to walk up on stage.
Yeah,
In a
and
spotlight.
and receive a trophy and get clapped at, and now people like you better than other women there. Like, it separated you. It was a way of singling you out, and so it explains why it was a good thing was triggering you. It's not necessarily like the trophy. It seems to me like it was more of like the setting of receiving public attention in a way that would make you more desirable.
How long has he been praising you in front of your friend group?
Probably forever. That's
Yeah.
since you were dating.
Yeah.
So were you able to receive it right before your high school reunion?
I don't know. I don't know if I've ever been able to receive it or if I've ever believed it.
I was just curious.
Yeah.
Yeah, the high school reunion thing, one day that's gonna come up as something because I have questioned that over and over again, and I think I've talked to you about it. I'm like, I've never ever been so determined to do something, and I don't even know. I think that's because that's when all that went down and it was so public, and I wanted to prove to everybody that I turned out okay.
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah.
then like I have this amazing life, and I look amazing, and
Yeah.
And that you deserve amazing.
Yeah, because if you looked the way you looked, then you wouldn't feel like you deserved it.
Yeah,
There's a lot to unpack there, but I think it's ultimately less about, I mean, see how it feels. Start to bring awareness to those moments. It's like wanting to buy a red Kia, like go home and notice if he appreciates you in private. Does that trigger you, or does it, because the thing is, like, when you're bringing it up, it's what's triggering you, it's always in a group. It's like always like praising you like a trophy. It wasn't Matt at first, it was receiving a Cutco trophy.
Yeah.
Right? So like in both settings, the commonalities are not, I mean, like, winning a trophy really is an appreciation. So it's more just like receiving in a group that like singles you out.
Even what you were talking about earlier with like co-parenting.
Yeah.
Like it's in front of your kids, that's an audience.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
All right, it's enough.
So look at your highway. Look at the highway you've laid out. What are your boundaries? Because when it comes to feeling underappreciated, it's coming back to your expectations of how others should treat you and how you've taught others to treat you, how you treat yourself. So if you're adhering to your boundaries and you're treating yourself a certain way, then you start to believe that's how you deserve to be treated. How do you carve out your standards? Look at your why. Your why on your best version of me, like what keeps you going. You show your people how to care for themselves, not by telling them, but by them watching you care for yourself. It's a big mind fuck to realize. I'm glad I realized this before I became a parent, but I think it's a mind fuck either way to realize that your kids don't learn how to be good human beings by watching you kill yourself to take care of them.
Right.
Your kids learn how to be good human beings by watching you be a good human being for yourself.
Yeah.
And ultimately, like, do you want your kids to grow up and bend over backwards and neglect themselves for somebody else? Or do you want them to grow up and learn how to take care of themselves? And so, like, what you're modeling, if all you're modeling is like neglecting self, rejecting self, burning out, and like to take care of others, they don't see it as you taking care of them. They see it as mom didn't take care of herself. Like, it took me a long time to see my mom's single mom like era as a self-sacrifice for us. But it was twofold. It felt like mom is the way she is because we're a burden to her. And it made me like regret. It made me regret like being alive. Like, I felt like I had to grow up. I had to prove that I could take care of myself. I had to be independent early on. Because if I wasn't able to take care of myself, then my mom was having to take care of me. And that was stressing her the fuck out. And it was like, I felt like a burden. I felt like a chore. And it wasn't until, I mean, she's just now starting to take care of herself now that we're like out of the house. You know, like, my childhood was a lot of mom spread too thin because of us. And that only taught me.
How did you know she was spread too thin? Like, what did she say or do that made you feel like that?
She didn't.
You just watched her
Not take care of herself.
So you're talking about physical health.
Yeah.
So the fact that you watched her
Her
make
physical health, her money's a big one. The money's a big one, and I know that because it shows up in my life. Like, I remember my mom clearing out her entire account and putting the money in my hands to go get the stuff we needed for school and the food we needed to eat that week, and her saying like, it's fine, well, like, once the bills bounce, we'll have another 2 weeks before anything gets cut off. And I remember being old enough to be like, okay, so the rest of our money's for me. Great.
So if I didn't exist,
You
would have more money.
Right. And so like, but that shows up everywhere, not just in money, in health, in free time. Like, if you never have time and it's spent taking care of your kids all the time, and you don't have time, mommy doesn't have time to take care of herself, then it's like, okay, so I'm the reason you don't have any time.
Damn, this is ugly.
So it's understanding that like you model, you teach other people how to treat you, and you teach other people how to take care of themselves. So return to your why. Leaving here, right? These are your leaving pieces. So I want to like hone in on the action steps, right? Like we're going to make a list of all the ways that expectations are showing up, but I would also look at your why and remind yourself that the best way to model that is to care for yourself. By caring for yourself, you're modeling, this is my choice, this is my life, this is what makes life great. You model that, and that's what teaches them. You taking care of them at your own expense teaches them that they aren't important. Teach them what's normal to expect from a partner. Like that's showing up in my platonic relationships too. Like with my friend Jackie, the best way for me to show her that she's making a huge mistake is by continuing to pour into myself, because she's lost all her independence in a matter of months. And so rather than me try to tell her the right way at the expense of our friendship, which would cause me a lot of pain and her a lot of pain, best way to do that is to model how I continue to have my independence within my relationship, because it's modeling how it should be done. So I say look at your why, because that really just applies to whether you have kids or not. Like your why, whatever keeps you going, is going to help you do some of this work when you've lost the motivation to do it for yourself. This is a practical, right? Like we've spent the whole weekend talking about do it for yourself, and while that's true, the fact of the matter is these patterns are hard to break. So rely on your why. Prepare versus prevent. Look at your why and put it on your bathroom mirror. Make it the background of your phone. Like keep that top of mind reminder of what your why is, because your why will keep you going when you can't do it for yourself. And that why, by the way, can be yourself. That's where you can pull up the cute version of yourself, the little you. That can also be part of your why, of why you work so hard to give her what she deserved.
I'm just stretching.
So that's it. We can field some questions. We can have more of a discussion about this, or we can go take 30, 45 minutes. I'll prep dinner, do some reflection on this. I think it's really important. Look at the action steps, like on your last page of your opening packet. At the end of the itinerary, there's space for like leaving. When I leave here, like what are my action steps? What am I focusing on? Look at the headspace in relation to the action steps, and use this talk to help you prepare versus prevent. And this could be an interactive part of the worksheet too, because our conversation has been great this weekend. So if you feel like it's more beneficial to kind of like spitball some of these things, like we can run scenarios. I mean, we've done a lot in coaching of visualizing. Like when this comes up, how do we want to handle it? And I think that's a big part of it too, is visualizing like when this pattern comes up, what gets said, how am I triggered, where does that trigger come from, how can I prepare versus prevent this from playing out the way that it always does. Because if I try to prevent this pattern from happening, I'm going to fall back into it. Come to terms with that. It's so much easier to just reckon with that truth than live in a fantasy land of thinking that like you're gonna go back and not have any of these patterns. Just come to terms with the fact that like patterns are hard to break. I can do hard things, but this is a hard thing. And I'm gonna need all the tools I can pull together to prepare me to work through breaking these patterns. I'm not going to be able to avoid these patterns from coming back up. They're going to continue to try to play out, and that will be my opportunity to try something new. The pattern will keep playing out until you can do something new about it. So understand that it's not going to come up, it's that when it comes up, I can bring awareness and I can try something different. And the beautiful thing about visualization and having these action steps is not waiting for it to come up to try to decide in the moment what you're going to do. Visualize it coming up now. Decide what you're going to do about it now. Be prepared so that when it does come up, you can have awareness about it. And you can understand, oh, this is where I wanted to try this. Right? So that's it. Look at the best version of me. Make a list of your expectations. Look at your why. And really start to get some understanding of the patterns that play out, the things that trigger you in your day-to-day life. We can do that. You can hang around in the kitchen if you want to do that together. You can find a spot alone if you want to do some introspection. What time is it? Anybody?
No idea.
6:19.
Beautiful. So we'll eat at 7. So I'm gonna start cooking, and if you want to like hang out, we'll make a salad dressing from scratch right before when we put it on our salad. Tonight's pretty super easy. So I'm gonna put dinner together minus the dressing, and so we got about 40 minutes. So if you want to do some of that, sitting at the counter and the outside counter looking in, if you want to find a space, either one's fine with me. But we can continue the discussion in the kitchen if you want to continue the discussion. I'm ready for that.
Cool
beans?
Little things.
Cool beans.
Something that's really cool that's come out of doing all the inner child stuff over the last couple months is that like I can feel when my inner child wants to like do something and I can indulge in it.
Like that?
Yeah. It's dope. Like it makes me feel good.
Yeah.
Or like I got really into Dippin' Dots.
Like,
Like I got so
say
into
less.
it.
No explanation.
Well, it's like my mom used to always say no.
Right.
I can get them for you now.
Right.
Well, like she said, I'm an adult. I feel like you want to grow. That's one of my
Yeah.
favorite quotes
Also,
from the
there's
whole
now a
weekend.
rip-off product called Mini Melts. That's
Nuh-uh.
the same fucking thing.
No.
Yeah.
Where is
I've never
it?
heard of them.
Mini Melts. I got them at Walmart.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Has anybody tried the Little Debbie line of ice cream at Walmart?
Yeah, I didn't like it.
Which one did you try?
The oatmeal pie.
Oh, okay. I really want to try the Swiss roll and or the zebra
I
cake.
did like the ice cream.
I would tear up the
Oh.
zebra
Very
cake.
low quality
Like it
ice
was
cream.
just a
to me.
cheap ice cream.
Yeah.
Man, that sucks.
I think you'd be better served to get a Swiss roll and
And-
crush it up with some quality ice
Ooh,
cream.
like marble slab style.
Mm.
That's a really good idea. Maybe the next retreat we'll make zebra cake, Swiss roll, Star Crunch, oatmeal pie, ice
So they
cream.
sell cold plates you can put in the freezer. Where you can make your own ice cream
With
Really?
a scraper thing?
with a scraper. They sell those.
Whoa, that would
And you
be a
can
fun
and you can
game
roll it
changer.
if you're patient, you can roll your own ice cream on
Oh, I'm patient. I'm
I'm
patient.
Oh
not.
yeah,
I'm
those
patient.
rolls.
I can be patient for ice cream.
it. But I
Yeah.
made
Yeah.
cinnamon
Can you
toast.
imagine
Extra while.
a little roll of a Swiss roll, a little roll of a zebra cake, a little roll of an oatmeal cream pie?
Yeah, you scrunch it.
Bro, I can be patient.
Lit.
Oh my god, you could
I
totally
made
pour the
cinnamon
cream on a
toast crunch
sweatshirt.
ice cream.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah. I actually teared up when I first bit it.
I believe that.
Because it was like a culmination thing. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Okay.
What are we chopping, bro?
Yeah, look in the fridge. There's the 2 baggies that say, like dinner. It's in the drawer.
I don't know if I brought my wine.